what are the individuals that were sponsoring it that being communicated? That, I mean, you're talking about the groups that are monitoring this whole program, but what about the individual children that were sponsoring? How are they being communicated to, and how should we communicate to them in our letters?
They've been getting communicated. The question is, how are the children closer, swallow the mic. Okay, that was your word earlier. It works. The question is, what's being communicated to the children who are being sponsored? Basically the same thing that's being communicated to you. We want to, and it's not just the children, it's their families. They've been around this information for some time. For us to suddenly come in and say, okay, we're going to leave here in 2.5 years and you're on your own, I hope you're ready. That's not the way to empower a community. In fact, the community leaders, which are the ones they're listening to prior to us coming in, the tribal leaders, community leaders, associative leaders, these are the ones we were sitting down with in the very beginning and mapping out a plan with the full understanding that at a certain point in time, we typically said 15 to 18 years, we would be handing the community operations and much of the work of maintaining the structures that have been created, etc., leadership, over to them. That point is critical. In like the same way when I was at Willow Creek and we started small groups, we started community small groups, we let everybody know there were 2 things you need to know. One, everybody's going to have an apprentice. Every leader's going to have an apprentice. Why would you have an apprentice? Because at some point this group's going to birth another group. Second thing, it's important that you know that the group is going to birth. Why is that important? Because your eyes are now off yourself. You're beginning to look beyond and realizing that there's another thing that's going to be happening for which you need to be a leader. I think it was John Adams who said the guillotine has a wonderful way of focusing the mind. When you know that you're going to be the leader, when you know that you're going to be the one in charge of your own destiny and growth, etc., it makes you a different listener. And that's one of the success factors in the growth of an ADP, is a community down to the family level, knowing at some point that group is going to be moving, and that's why they're listening and grasping for leadership, increasingly realizing it's going to be theirs. So we're telling them the same thing. I think you can communicate openly. I'm looking at, I think, our staff, when I talked with our group in Uganda, they said they've talked with every family. And this is an ongoing process of obviously greater intensity as we begin to pull kids out of the program because we're scaling back sponsorships. The funding doesn't all stop at once. That's a shock to the system. And so we're gradually looking at where can we actually pull sponsorship back, funding back, in such a way that those kids are ready, those families, that area is ready, and some are more ready than others. That's why we're taking such a long time to do it. Good question.
Dennis, I'm sorry.
Are we going to be able to celebrate with the people of Rakai their success in taking over? In other words, are we so disconnected that we don't see them succeeding?
Can I give you that's a great question. Everybody hear that? The question was, how are we going to celebrate this transition with the people of Rakai? 3 things come to my mind. Paul probably has others, but that we have identified now. Our last, quote, regular trip to Rakai will be next fall. Paul and I and several others will go on a larger trip next February to have a community-wide celebration with the Rakai Masaka group and to formally talk about our pride in them and what they have accomplished and what God has done with them. The third thing is that probably the bulk of our Easter 2009 offering will establish some kind of a legacy fund to ensure our continuing concern for those kids especially that we have committed ourselves to. And probably you will come up with other ways that we can make that a smoother transition.
I have a couple of questions. First, do you sponsor, what percent of Rakai do you sponsor? Is it all of Rakai, or what percent?
When you consider that some 35, 3,500 to 5,000 children are typically sponsored within an area development project, I could get you the rough percentage breakdown. You don't sponsor all of them, you sponsor a lot of them.
So,
About half, I'm hearing half.
so, what I'm curious as to, Vision and I were talking earlier, we were wondering what is the political structure of Rakai and the relationship between Rakai and Uganda, and then tied to that, how does that political structure affect education? And, I noticed that it says that we pay tuition for 1,000 students, but instead of reading that it's free now, how long will that be? And so you understand that?
Right. The question is about the stability and what happens post our withdrawal. The second part is that probably the 1,000 people that we sponsored were for secondary education rather than primary education. But there are also right. I was just trying to get to the second part before I forgot. The other part, stability, is like all countries. Uganda is regional, and things are most stable closest to Kampala, the capital. But Kampala in south and southwest is very good, very stable, which is where Rakai is. You guys might remember Rakai is on the Tanzania border, on the northern edge of Lake Victoria. It is the part that you hear about in Uganda is in the far north, in the Gulu area, and we are several hours removed from that, and so this is politically very stable. The other part of your question is, how is it supported by the government? The positive thing of this is that the Rakai initiative has been seen as a real political plus for the Museveni government. You guys might remember that Mrs. Museveni has been here, the First Lady of Uganda was here in this room, talking about their commitment to the AIDS problem and how Rakai has been a leader in that. And so in this case, governmental attention is very positive. There's a strong parliamentary presence in this part of Uganda, and that is, while always subject to change, gives us good hope that the local governmental leaderships will continue to be positive. Others? You will be like me and probably have your best question in the car on the way home. If that's the case, if it's a critical question, please address it to Paul Shihamba. But we want to, and part of this is you're going to have questions that we are going to be saying, don't know. Have to think about that. We'll have to figure that out together. Also.